Welcome to week 2 of NHL Nightcap with your hosts Sully and Deke, and we're going to break down the highlights, give you our opinions of the news, the controversies, and everything in between. Let's start off with our game of the week. So last week we talked about Schneider returning to Vancouver, facing off against his old friend Luongo. Deke, why don't you give us a little breakdown of your thoughts on the game?
Well, last week it was a pretty big game for the Devils and the Canucks. Everyone was looking at Schneider and Luongo, no one else really on the team, but just Luongo and Schneider, and the Canucks were seeing if they made the wrong choice by trading their possibly starter goalie and trading Luongo instead, but it seemed to be right for them as they did win in overtime with Jason Garrison on the point shot, and that's how that game ended. And if you want to talk about game number 2, which is the Chicago Blackhawks and the St. Louis Blues, then step right up.
Well, I think St. Louis, this was a huge game for them because a lot of people think they can challenge Chicago and they can be a cup contender. And so they were starting out hot, and a little bit of questioning surrounded Halak, and can he be that guy for them? They gave up some pieces for him, and they played well. They scored with 20 seconds to win it, and it shows that they can go toe-to-toe with Chicago. And for St. Louis, I think for them to... they're one of those teams that they do have the potential to go deep in the playoffs, and the regular season can be viewed like the Pittsburgh Penguins as practice. And so I think going forward, they had some issues, but they definitely want to. It was a great game, and it was a playoff game. A lot of people were tweeting about it, and I think they can just push forward. They should be in good shape, and it'll be interesting to see that third team come into play for who can challenge them out west.
Yeah, exactly. That was a great game. I would say that was possibly the game of the night, but of course everyone has their own things. But I'd say I'm not a fan of either team, and I would say that's probably definitely the game of the week. There were some other games, though, that were good last week, but in my opinion, I think that was the game of the week.
Definitely. I agree with that. I think everyone had their eyes on that. And NHL Network, I was watching them at work, and they were saying even if you're a hockey fan, this game was a matchup. It was a must-watch, and it definitely was worth every second of it. So I enjoyed it. I think Colorado, they're going to surprise some people because early on, I don't think the writers really predicted them to be the contender that they're turning out to be.
Exactly. A lot of people thought they were going to be the same team as last year with maybe McKinnon doing something here and there, and they got Waz, their coach, and he wasn't afraid in the first week. I believe it was the first week where he became the Incredible Hulk, but he's been making his team amazing. They're 5-0. Like, the team's been unbelievable. They're not winning by like one goal. They're no flaws at the moment, but they are a young team, and once a loss happens here or there, team might lose some confidence, maybe shut down a little bit. And if any injuries happen, it could be a key, especially since their defense is not very stacked. It's nothing special, but they have a very young team, and we will see how far it will take them.
I agree. I think you're right about the young, just the coaching staff coming in. They're doing a great job so far. But I think the one thing for a young team, or anytime a team's gelling, is let's see how they do once they hit that first tough season of a season, and let's see what they do when hard times come and maybe the team's not clicking as they thought they would be.
Yeah, I agree there. The next one I want to go into would be another team that is doing very good is the Toronto Maple Leafs. They had a pretty strong playoff run last year, but they did lose in the 7th game, which everyone knows about that game. But a lot of people weren't really expecting them to do much this year. They did pick up Clarkson, who hasn't played anything for them because he's suspended for 10 games, and they got Boland. And surprisingly, they are doing very good. They're 5-1. They're scoring. They're playing pretty good defense, and basically they're just an overall really good team. I believe they're tied for first, so that's very good for them.
They are, and actually, as of right now, the second in the conference standings, they're first overall, even above Pittsburgh, and so they're doing great. What I want to see from Toronto is their tandem with Bernie Mac and James Reimer, how that's going to work moving forward. Right now, Bernie Mac seems to be grabbing that number 1 spot, and he's doing really well. And they have a plus differential of 8 for goals against and goals for. And the big stat for me, whenever you're starting out, is the record away from home ice, and they're undefeated right now, which is a rare accomplishment for any team in the NHL. The only team that's undefeated on the road right now is Colorado, and so I think Toronto's at good pace right now, but I don't want the success to go their head, and I think they know that. They have a good group of guys there, and the coaching staff will definitely cement that in their heads, but you gotta love 3-0 away from home ice.
Yeah, exactly. Another team that I think is surprising a few people, they did it the first week, and they're doing it again now. The Flames, they still have yet to lose in regulation. They lost 2 in overtime, but they're playing really good. They have 8 points in 5 games. They lost to Ginla. Kiprusoff retired, and they're still getting it done. But then again, they are a very young team, and I think it's only a matter of time before they start shutting down. But they're still surprising me, and I think a lot of people right now.
I agree. What I see from Calgary is I think they're taking on the identity that's us against the world, and home games for them are so powerful because that's probably the only place where people actually believe in them, and they take that passion, they take it with them. You know, Mike Camilleri is he's a great player, but he's 31 and he's getting up there, and it's interesting. I don't think they'll trade him, but still, how are they going to use him? Because if he gets injured, that could be a huge loss to them offensively. But I still look for them to, sort of like you, Deke, there's going to come a point where they hit that reality phase, and when it does, I think it's going to be over for them.
Exactly. And the last team to talk about, which is, in my opinion, isn't really surprising, I guess we'll talk about the two. The Blues and the Sharks are both undefeated. Both of them were expected to do good this season, and they're showing it. But, you know, no one was really expecting them to do bad, so it's not really much of a surprise, but both of them are undefeated.
And for the Sharks specifically, I don't think people really expected the Sharks to be this good early on. Hurdle's played amazing with his 4 goals, and we'll get into what he did a little bit later. But if you look at their roster, they have a mix of old guys, but they have some talent that's they don't. I personally do not think they have a lot of young, heavy guys. Most of their guys are sort of fading out, but I think this is the one year that they can really make that push, and I hope so, because the young guys aren't getting or the old guys aren't getting any younger, but they have a nice balance of young to old talent. So I like what they're doing. They have Dan Boyle. You know, we already know about Hurdle. It's going what I think. Joe Thornton, I think he knows his clock is ticking, and he wants to do really well. And if they can keep up their high scoring offense, they should be a very powerful team. I don't know if they're going to challenge Chicago and St. Louis as well as other people may think, but they have the potential.
Yeah, exactly. This first week looks pretty good for some teams, and for others, it looks pretty bad. There are a bunch of teams that are really, really disappointing. I'm just going to briefly go over the ones I think are disappointing. Buffalo Sabres being 0-5-1 to start it's not really a shock because they weren't really expected to go far, but that's pretty disappointing for them. The Rangers, Flyers, and Capitals only have 1 win, and the Devils have yet to get a win. Going into the Central Division, Minnesota did start up pretty struggly, but they are moving up a bit, and the Oilers are back where they were, 1-3-1, only 1 win. And that's about it. No other teams are really playing that bad, and we already covered the great teams, and we will see what next week brings for how good the standings will be and how much they'll be changed.
All right, so the players, there are some players that we want to talk about, and Deke, why don't you kick off this portion of the podcast?
Well, to start off with, there is a very underrated and a very, not overrated, but a player you could expect to be there. Sidney Crosby has 9 points. He's gotten a hat trick in his last game, and he's got 9 points, which is very good. He's leading the league. And right under him with 8 points is a guy many people might have not heard of until recently, his 4-goal night and his breaking goal that has over 3 million views on YouTube. His goal is, in my opinion, probably going to get goal of the year, but his name is Thomas Hurdle, and he surprised a lot of people. He got 4 goals the one night. He's got 2 goals the game before that game, and he's got 1 goal in his last game. He's got 7 goals in 5 games, and he is only 19 years old, and he's surprising a lot of people on the Sharks.
He is, and the big news has come, the controversy, but he left with an injury in the last game, I believe it happened 15 hours ago. So I don't think it's going to deter him, but he does a lot. He can shoot, he can get to the gritty areas, and he has flash to his game. And everyone's talking about the goal, the fourth goal that he showboated on. But I personally don't have an issue with it. And just to go off on a little tangent right now, NHL is a lot like baseball in the aspect that they don't like over the top celebrations. But I think hockey this can help their brand personally, and I think they shouldn't shy away from what he did, because either way, if he didn't score, he'd look like an idiot, right? People would laugh at him, but it's because he pulled it off that some people are taking issue. But I like his game. I would be careful with the quick starts. A guy gets up there in goals and points, and people start talking about him, and then teams are going to key in on him. When they play the Sharks, they're going to look to stop Hertl. And so let's wait for throughout the season to buy or sell on Hertl and see, because teams are going to put the book on this kid. It happens with every superstar, and teams will adjust. And so let's wait and see before we go to buy or sell on his stardom in the NHL, and let's see how serious of a goal scorer he is when defenses key on him.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since he's so young and no one really heard of him till this year. Well, not even this year. After that 4-goal game, then people really started looking at him. But besides that, no one really knew about him. But now we will move on to our next segment, which is the games of the week for this week. And let me tell you, there are a lot of good games. Sully, do you wanna recap some of your favorites, or you think that will be the best this week?
I do. I have a few game of the weeks that I think you guys will really enjoy, just not only from a fan's perspective, but just from two teams coming in, fighting for position. One that I have myself is Tuesday, San Jose and St. Louis. These two teams will probably come in, or they are going to come in, undefeated, both of them. One of them is going to lose. One of them is going to take that first loss. Huge game. And the second game that I would think personally is very big, in my opinion, is Detroit and Colorado. On Thursday, Colorado is having a hot start. A lot of people are talking about them, but Detroit has some youth, veteran leadership. They also have Howard in net. I think this is going to be a test for Colorado to see if they're a legitimate team that their record is proclaiming them to be.
I agree. There are also some pretty big rivals going on. There will be the Pittsburgh Penguins at the Flyers, and that will be on Thursday the 17th. And that game is going to be pretty big. The Flyers starting out 1-5. They really want to get out of their slump, but they got to go up against the Penguins. They do play the Canucks on the 15th, but that's also a very good team. But against the Penguins, they're huge rivals, and they're usually pretty good against the Penguins, but I feel like the Penguins could slaughter them, and they don't want to start off going like 1-7 or something like that. And my next game, which is, in my opinion, is a very big game, is the Rangers and Devils, which is happening on Saturday the 19th of October. And this game, to me, has a lot of meaning because both teams are playing very, very bad. Both are struggling. One is struggling under their new head coach, and one is struggling under the huge offseason. And it'll be really interesting to see who wins that game, and that's a huge rivalry going on there.
I agree, and there's one game that I was looking at that definitely I would key in on, and I overlooked it actually, and I apologize for that, is St. Louis versus Chicago, the rematch from this past week, and it's playing, I believe it's playing, at United Center, and so the rematch of what took place, St. Louis winning in the final waning moments of the game, coming back, and this is a good rebound game for Chicago. Everyone's talking about St. Louis now, so the storylines going into this game will definitely pay attention to leading up to the game and definitely after the game.
I didn't even see that either, so that's going to be really interesting. Steen won the game with about 14 seconds left, so Chicago was utterly shocked and probably pretty sad after that one, and definitely want to get rematch over this one, especially at their home. But we will see what happens there. I think there are a lot of good matchups this week. Really, there's looking from the first game to the last game of the week, there are a lot of good games, and it should be a very exciting week, and hopefully some interesting stuff happens this week.
Definitely, and so we will let it go from there, and we'll see you guys next week to recap these past game of the weeks. Have a great one. Take care, guys. We'll talk to you later.
I need your time when everything's wrong. You make it right. I feel so high. I come alive. I need to be free with you tonight. I need your love.